welcome back to our next speakers, and let's continue the next session. And I'm welcoming to the stage Tatiana Hoyos, Assistant Professor at the Pontificia Universidad Javeriana, and Carlos Rico, Program Director at the Academic Vice Presidency at Universidad Javeriana in Colombia. Welcome, guys.
Hey, hello, Mylene. Hey, lovely to see you.
Nice to see you, Tatiana. Nice to see you again.
Okay, very good. Is the sound okay? Okay, perfect.
Yes, it is. Tatiana?
So,
yes, is my sound okay?
Perfect. I am, and I believe we are listening to you. Such a pleasure.
I have also started projecting my presentation. Can you actually see it? Our presentation.
Not yet.
Oh, wait. Okay, so StreamYard. Oh my gosh, wait. Okay, got it. Share screen. Share entire screen. All right, I think you can see it now, right?
Yes. Right. Let's see.
Full screen.
Full screen, yes. I see it full screen. We can use the chat. Maybe the rest of the participants can double check with us. Other than that, Carlos Rico, Tatiana, the stage is yours.
Okay, Carlos, let me turn on my camera so all the attention is on you. All right, and here we go.
Thank you, Tatiana. It's okay. Okay, I was going to say good morning. I am in the United Kingdom, so good afternoon. So first, we would like to thank you for attending our presentation. And second, we hope you enjoyed this presentation as we enjoy doing this research. So we are going to share some findings in regards to this research about intercultural communicative competence. So we were a group of teachers working at Javeriana University in the language department. So in this moment, we are two of them, so Tatiana and me, and we are going to share with you, as I said before, the findings of this research. So basically, next, Tatiana, please. So basically, before starting introducing the research question and what was the main concern, yes, of our research, I would like to give you a very brief context about our research. As you know, the intercultural approach and the intercultural competence have been included in our language syllabi, and we teachers are asked to develop the intercultural competence in our students, but sometimes we don't know how to do it. For the last decade, many things have been written about the intercultural approach in language teaching, but a few of them have been related to how it would be assessed. When asking teachers about their knowledge regarding the intercultural competence, they hesitate and they cannot provide an exact definition, yes, of what it is. It does not mean that, well, they do not have or possess the information or the right definition about what it means. Probably it's, well, that they don't know how to develop, yes, this competence in the classroom. Consciously or unconsciously, teachers make lots of efforts to develop and assess this competence, but we are not aware of what they do. And precisely, this is where the key point, and that's why this research is concerned for describing what a group of teachers do to promote the development of intercultural competence in an English language class. We were interested in describing the sort of teaching strategies, types of activities they use to promote the intercultural development, the sort of knowledge or knowledges, if you allow me to use, yes, this plural, or the dimensions of interculturality, well, that they develop, and the way they assess the intercultural competence. We are going to concentrate, we are going to focus, yes, on this last part because of it's the main topic of this conference, yes, about assessment. But before starting, yes, sharing with you the findings, it is necessary to understand Yes, what do we mean by this concept? Because of it's quite difficult. Sometimes, well, when we have to assess something, we need to know conceptually, yes, how we define, how we conceptualize, yes, that concept. So there are many definitions about interculturality. I think, yes, this is not new. So, but what we have to be very careful is what it's going to be that right definition that maybe compiles, maybe can summarize, yes, the most significant, yes, elements of what interculturality provides. There is one author, it's an American one, Fantini, probably you have read a lot about, yes, him, yes, in regards to intercultural competence, but he has defined intercultural competence as the ability to deal with differences in a positive manner. I highlight the attention here because of this is not the definition that we like. In what sense? Because of he defines the intercultural competence as an ability. And then we shock because of we cannot say it is that intercultural competence is going to be an ability, as if you were going to develop, for instance, reading or writing or speaking or whatever language skill. So for us, it's much more than an ability. It's going to be a capacity, yes, that implies, yes, the social, the cultural knowledge, yes, of the interlocutors. And this is on the first hand, yes, one of the criticisms, yes, that we make to this definition, yes, that this author says that it's an ability. And the second part, yes, of what I defined, or what I shared with you, this definition, is that he says that is that ability to deal with differences in a positive manner. But what does it mean? Who can say what it's going to be the right way of dealing with difference? So there are going to be some ethical considerations, yes, that we need to highlight, yes, when adopting, for instance, such a definition, yes, like Fantini provides. So we've been doing, particularly in my own case, I have written some articles and stuff like that, and I've been doing researches with the group of teachers at language department in Javeriana University. And then we have seen that probably there is a very good definition that, we have elaborate, yes, and it has to do, with intercultural competence. It's going to be understood not as an ability, but it's going to be an overall social and psychological capacity of an individual to manage appropriately the social and communicative encounters with people from other cultural backgrounds. We know that learning a language as it is spoken by any particular group is learning the shared meanings, values, practices of that group as they are embodied in the language. It is very, very important, yes, to start and be very precise on what is going to be the definition, yes, of intercultural competence. Because of time, so we are not going to maybe take or discuss more about that, but at the end with your question. So Tatiana, could you please continue with that part of the theoretical framework?
Sure, just turning on my camera right now. Okay, going back to the presentation. And here we go. All right, Carlos? Okay, good. All right, so we went over the state of the art. Can you see me, people? Is everything okay? All set, May?
Yes, it is. It is working.
Right. So we went over the state of the art of ICC, which became a great part of our theoretical framework. And we studied the approaches to ICC. Over here, we have the social science, the critical, and the interpretive, yes, and also the different ways culture is viewed from ICC. And we went through its main authors, all right? From this perspective, some authors see culture through a simplistic or a complex approach. The simplistic one states that cultures are identified through countries or geographical barriers. However, through our study, we understand that each large group is made up of smaller groups, even if they are in the same territory, like it happens in our country. We are one country with 9 different regions, and each one has its own culture. So it all started from Spitzberg in 1988. He started talking about knowledge and motivation and skills. Then it was Rubens he continued with some traits or values of ICC, and then came Bennett with his culture shock stages, which are pretty famous, all right? And after that was Byron from Europe, and he introduced all the savoirs. He gave more emphasis to interaction and values. We will be talking about them in a little bit. He mentioned savoir, savoir-faire, savoir s'engager, savoir être. Excuse my French. Later, it was Vanderbloom in 2003 with his broader perspective on global ICC. Then Fantini with his 5 dimensions, where he mentions proficiency in host language, as well as Riesiger. And finally, Shen and Cheitza. And this theoretical framework was based on Humphrey 2007. Through all this research, we adopted Byram's savoirs to be able to assess the development of ICC in language classes through activities, materials, and assessment. So the first one is savoir. It's the knowledge individuals have about other social groups in their culture or others, about their societal and interactive processes or individual ones. Then we have savoir-faire over here, which is the skills, the know-how, or the ability to acquire new knowledge and put it into practice under the restrictions of real interaction and communication. The next one is savoir s'engager, or awareness, or reflecting it's the ability to evaluate critically and consciously under specific criteria, perspectives, and practices belonging to the person's cultures or others. When learning a language, we think about language and cultural awareness. Being aware of our own cultural values as well as that from others is a must. And then we have savoir-être, referring to the curiosity, the openness to other cultures without judging them, and at the same time, help with the understanding of one's own culture. As Rico was mentioning a while ago, he's an expert on ICC, so he actually proposed another savoir that was savoir communiquer, and we decided to include it in our research in order to observe the development of ICC in an English class. And it's savoir communiquer, which refers to the ability to function linguistically, how learners relate to familiar or unfamiliar experiences through language. They think about how one perceives, conceptualizes, and expresses, and how to communicate with the possibilities that the other person has to understand. Therefore, for this study, ICC would imply the development of competences in various systems of perception, thought, and behavior in order to promote abilities such as accepting diversity of cultures and identities, interacting and communicating in effective, appropriate, and flexible ways, as well as obtaining cooperation. Also, it was important to go over what strategies are for Rebecca Oxford. We decided to keep Rebecca Oxford's learning strategies definitions, which she refers to as specific actions taken by the learner to make learning easier, faster, more enjoyable, more self-directed, more effective, and more transferable. And then in 2003, she said that they help determine how well our students learn a second language or foreign language, second or foreign language. It is important to highlight that to Oxford, teaching strategies are the knowledge that teachers have about the learning strategies that students use. So there are 62 learning strategies, 32 are direct and 27 are indirect. Direct strategies facilitate internalization, storage, retrieval, or use of new language. They use the target language directly, and they require mental processes. Indirect language strategies work together with direct strategies. They help learners regulate the learning process, and these strategies support and manage language learning without direct engagement, and therefore they are called the indirect strategies. The 3 subcategories for direct strategies are going to be memory, cognitive, and compensation, while for indirect strategies, it's going to be metacognitive, affective, and social. The methodology we used for this research was a descriptive cases study with 4 professors at the BA in modern languages, 2 of them teaching coincidentally in the English pre-intermediate level, and the other 2 in intermediate and low advanced. They all had at least 4 years teaching at the BA and had been language teachers for more than 10 years. All of them had a teaching degree in languages and an MA in ELT or education. We used 3 data technique collections. We used 3 data collection techniques. Classroom observation, particularly focusing in the class itself. In general, materials used, interactions and activities. We did not ask them to do anything related to ICC. We were just observing the class, how it worked, and how teachers were evaluating. The semi-structured interview was designed from the Savoie's perspective, and the intention of the focus group was to give teachers hypothetical cultural challenging situations to see how they would solve those cases while interacting with others. After having applied all instruments, the data was analyzed. In order to do this, we undertook a cross-case analysis, which was grounded on a matrix that included specific cases and contexts. The y-axis included Oxford's learning strategies, and the x-axis listed Rico's 5 savoirs. First, we went over our 3 instruments, all right? Interview, observation, and focus group. And according to the appearance of certain situations, or depending on what the teacher mentioned, we would relate it to one of the savoirs and a strategy. After solving that, we would concentrate on the frequency that a savoir or a strategy was mentioned, and this is how the analysis was done. So this is what we found. I don't want to spend too much time on the other categories of our research, but I do want you guys to see the frequency that we identified. Yes, teachers were developing ICC, all right? For example, in the use of materials, yes, we can see a great frequency. It's an okay frequency, all right, materials. And then look at this, activities, all right? The frequency rises much more, all right? So we can say the teachers are developing we're developing ICC more in their activities than in their materials. But now take a look at assessment. All right. Oh my gosh, all the numbers went down. All right. So actually, teachers were not actually assessing ICC. They were doing activities to promote it, or actually they were adapting the material that they had or creating new material in order to promote ICC, but they were not assessing ICC very much. All right. Again, we can see the frequency of all the strategies, yes, used. And then here we can see the privileged savoir. All right. For activities, it was skills or savoir-faire, all right, and the same as in materials, all right. However, in assessment, the privileged savoir was proficiency, the way that students were communicating. However, I would like to mention that it was kind of balanced out somehow between savoir communiquer and savoir-faire. All right, as well as savoir-être. But the one that was not privileged very much were the attitudes, all right, savoir-être. Over here, again, the most privileged strategies and savoirs, just so you have a general look at our whole research, all right? The most privileged strategies in general were indirect ones, all right? And the savoir that was most privileged in all the research was savoir-faire, all right? However, in assessment, we are assessing the proficiency in the language. So as you can see, if we think about ICC development in L2 classes, there's a strong focus on developing skills and communication, but not very much awareness and attitude or knowledge. Actually, knowledge is going to be the third one in our research study in general. All right. Here, assessment, all right, in our three instruments in the observation, metacognitive strategies prevailed. Evaluating your language and self-evaluating is the specific strategy that we found in the observation, while in the interview, direct strategies prevailed, all right? We found cognitive strategies with analyzing and reasoning, and then we had analyzing expressions or reasoning deductively. And then indirect strategies in the focus group, which are the ones that are privileged the most, metacognitive ones and social ones, all right? And specifically related to arranging and planning your learning, finding about language learning, organizing, planning for a language task. And then social strategies focused on empathy, empathizing with others, developing cultural understanding, and becoming aware of other thoughts. Over here, we can see another big picture of the strategies used from a quantitative perspective. Direct strategies were identified. 8 direct strategies were identified. The strongest focus on direct strategies as it was on the cognitive strategies. And then we had indirect strategies. And we can see that the one that was privileged the most was metacognitive ones. And then the second one was social strategies. Affective strategies did not appear very much. Over here, I wanted you to take a look to all the strategies from Rebecca Oxford, yes, and only the ones in yellow were the ones that were identified. Of all of them, yes, we only had 5 identified. This is only for direct strategies. And on indirect strategies, we have almost all of them. If we think about it, from the metacognitive strategies, we have a whole bunch of them, all right, identified. And then social strategies also were identified a lot, but then affective strategies were not identified very much. Here we have some, I'm going to just show you like 3 examples of what teachers were saying about like what they said that we were able to identify that they were actually assessing the intercultural competence somehow. So this is an example of an indirect strategy, a metacognitive one, arranging and planning your learning, specifically finding out about language learning. This teacher, and I want to highlight this part, this he says that it's important to give students different scenarios, different situations of interaction, yes, to enable them to assess their own process. And this will make them more conscious of their own and their partner's learning processes, all right? So again, and this is going to help students identify their own weaknesses and strengths when they are learning a language. Another example that we wanted to highlight is on social strategies related with empathizing with others and developing cultural understanding. And the important point here is to understand that teaching a language or assessing a language, a foreign language or a second language user, it's not just about the communicative skills, but also being able to understand cultural differences. The last example that I have for you today, again, is related with empathizing with others, becoming aware of others' thoughts, yes, and what's interesting about this one is how teachers are not only focusing on assessing verbal language, all right, but also non-verbal language. And this teacher, for example, was checking his students' faces in order to know their level of motivation. So, and actually this helped him through the students' faces, he could actually evaluate his own practice. So what can we say about all of this, Carlos? Okay, give me a second.
Yes, very quickly because of time. So I'm going to try to summarize these findings into the following conclusions, even in the ones that you can observe in the slides. So the first one is that intercultural competence can be assessed formally or informally. But we have to be aware of the different dimensions of the competence, yes, of this competence. Yeah, it does not consist of defining a list of indicators as we were filling in a form. It is necessary to observe and connect the different dimensions of this competence. And that's going to be probably a very big challenge, yes, for teachers. And it has to do well with the need to create much more holistic rubrics. The second conclusion is that intercultural competence requires on us as teachers to revise constantly what we teach, how we teach it, and what we teach that for. The conclusions number 3, 4, and 5, I would like, well, to summarize them, yes, on the idea that we need to expand the sort of strategies we use to promote ICC. As you see, Rebecca Oxford is quite nice because of she got a very, very holistic approach, yes, on analyzing how the language works. Yes, that's well what she considers the cognitive dimension, the social dimension, the cultural dimension, and this is actually well what we need when working on intercultural communicative competence. So it is not only, yes, the abilities, it also has to do well with these dimensions, yes, of the individuals. As I said, the cognitive, the behavioral, and the social one. And in regards to observation, that it's going to be the conclusion number 6, yes, in the slide, we have to say that observation is very important. So observing other teachers makes us reflect on our pedagogical practices and what we need to do to improve them. Basically, this is very, very important for further research. And the last conclusion is that we firmly believe that intercultural approaches help us on being better human beings and citizens. So we have the big challenge to work on this competence. Our recommendations are maybe to work more on professional development and more spaces to dialogue and share experiences and to reflect upon our pedagogical practices. Thank you very much. Yes, that's enough because of time. So it's time for questions, I think.
And Carlos, let's see if we have any questions from the audience.
Woo.
Okay, checking the comments. Okay, I have an observation and sort of a question, and is if you have any idea or like if you have discussed how often should we observe the teachers and if there should be an agreement from the very beginning, for example, of the semester at the university regarding this process of observing and learning from others, from their best practices when teaching ICC and assessing ICC, and definitely with the effective strategies where we need to improve.
Very good question, Mylene. I think that we have to be very careful and yes, when and how often we use observations, yeah, because it has to do also well with autonomy. And then there are lots of teachers here that they are very reluctant, yes, to being observed. But I think it depends maybe on how you use observation for. So if we frame observation, yes, for developing or improving, yes, as I said before, the pedagogical practices, I think it's very, very good. So we can work as a team, and then it doesn't happen. So it's not going to be, yes, for different purposes than improving, yes, our teaching practices. And that's well what we do. Basically, that's a normal situation that, well, we can identify it, yes, in our university. So we can open our classroom and maybe to invite teachers, maybe to observe, because of, well, as I said, what it's going to be that purpose of observation. It's not going to be for summative purposes or maybe to judge, yes, any behavior, yes, in regards to teaching. It's part of, yes, what teaching is. So I think I feel very, very comfortable maybe to do and to implement, yes, such technique, yes, in our classrooms. Yeah, probably we have lost, yeah. So we are not that, we are working quite isolated, I think. Yes, we do not invite, yes, some other colleagues. So it's time, yes, to invite them, because that's part of intercultural competence, isn't it?
I agree with you, Carlos, and thank you so much. There is a question from Fernay. First of all, he is thanking you, and he's asking, in your view, would it be possible to relate the critical cultural dimension of ICC as proposed by Byram to critical approaches to interculturality coming from the colonial theory? Did this negotiation inform the study in any way, and how?
Tatiana, sorry, it's because of its part, yes, of what I've been doing. So I'm going to, yes. So it's a very good question. So for instance, for what we are sharing with you now is what we can do in order to improve our teaching practices. Yeah, but it does not mean that we cannot, yes, take up the colonial perspective. In fact, this is something what I am doing because of our reality. Do you remember, yes, when Tatiana showed the Colombian map? So it is necessary to recognize how important is our reality. So the way how we think, the way how we behave is totally different from region to region. So in that case, it is necessary maybe to improve and maybe to understand, yes, this sort of knowledge, and then how to possess the new knowledge. So this is what we need to do now in our classroom. So that's what the colonial perspective tell us, that more than try to use, yes, those frameworks, yes, and try to adopt them, yes, in our own teaching circumstances. What we need to do is just to create, yes, our new knowledge. So basically, this is what we do in terms of, for instance, in terms of observing, maybe analyzing, inviting some other teachers, yes, in regards to know, yes, what they teach, how they teach. So we create a new knowledge, and then little by little, so we are possessing, yes, a new way, a new framework, yes, for understanding intercultural competence. That has to do more with the critical perspective. So lots of things, yes, to be done, yeah, in that regard. So basically, it's.
I'm gonna share the last question so I don't take time for one to join the main stage back again. Andres Felipe Mican is asking, have you got any insights about how to work on ICC as a super globalized and interconnected world, such as the one we are living in, where probably local characteristics are being lost?
Carlos, I think this question is also for you, and I would like to mention that, Carlos, if you could mention the differences of the concept, how the concept is understood in Latin America and Europe, I think that can really clear out what's happening with interculturality here in Latin America.
I think this is a challenge. I think, yeah, because of we are not anymore isolated. Well, we have not been, yes, throughout the history. So we are social human beings. So we deserve to the others. We are part of the others. We are part of the groups. And then we need to know how can we interact, yes, with people, well, with different sort of cultural and social backgrounds. This is what we need to do. And then we need to develop such competencies, but not in the sense of saying this is the way, because nobody can say what it's going to be the way. I think this is a normal situation in which we have to deal with people, yes, to interact with people. So we need to know how to deal with people, yes, that portray different identities, yes, different social and cultural backgrounds. So the question is, have been taught on how to deal with that? So probably no. So I think it's going to be a challenge, yeah? But it's not. Be careful, because it's not only a matter or a concern of a language teacher. It's the responsibility of everyone. So now please do not think, yes, that if our students are not intercultural competent, it's because of the language teachers. No, I think it's part. This is a huge boat in which all of us are embarked. Yes, and it's our own responsibility, because those are competencies, and those competencies are much more related to who we are socially and culturally speaking. So that's what we need to work much more on those things. We are very privileged because we are working with a very, very beautiful instrument, which is language. And by means of having language, We can do hundreds, thousands of things. So that's what I can say. We are privileged, yes? So the right thing is, how can we use language to promote, yes, interculturality? So that's going to be the challenge. But I think, yes, we can do it. And we can do it in our language classrooms. So, well, I'm sorry, I'm quite passionate, yes, because of this topic, but it's part of, well, of me. Thank you. Sorry, Maylene.
We are passionate about language and definitely using it as the way to get there and to work together. No? All right. Okay.
Absolutely.
This is it. Time's up. And now we invite you to join the main stage for the panel, Teacher Education and Training for Language Assessment. Then you'll have a lunch break, and we hope to see you back here at 1:45 p.m.
All right. Thank you, Mylene. Thank you very much.
Diana.
Lovely to see you, Mylene. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Thank
so
you,
happy
everyone.
to see you,
Bye-bye.
Carlos. Bye-bye.
Bye.